All right, Larry Krueger here at Levi's after Wednesday's practice for the Pig and a Pickle Krug show with a little 49er update on everything that happened here in Santa Clara on a Wednesday. All right, Niners made some transactions today. They signed Michael Dunn, number 60. He's wearing number 60 at practice. He's an offensive lineman, versatile offensive lineman. He gave up 2 sacks and 6 pressures and 106 pass blocking snaps in 2024. Very versatile guy. 57 snaps at center last year, 87 snaps at guard, even had 26 snaps at tight end. They say he can play tackle as well. So Michael Dunn, the newest 49er. The Niners also waived running back Corey Kiner, waived injured. So, Shanahan had just said the day before that, Kiner had a high ankle sprain. He was going to be out a month. I think the plan is probably to have him clear waivers, which he will most likely, and then try to put him on some kind of a list, injured list, maybe IR to start the year. We'll see. Or they could lose him. He could be picked up by somebody else and wind up on another team. But he did have a good camp. I know they like him. It seems like he was definitely in line for a roster spot, but waived today by the 49ers. He's got a high ankle sprain. He's going to be out a month. I think the Niners will try to get him back and put him on their roster, but we'll see. The Niners also released Damone Harris today. They signed wide receiver Malik Knowles. Knowles was at practice. Knowles went to K-State. He had been on the team earlier this offseason, but he had been cut earlier. Now he was brought back. The Niners only had 8 wide receivers practicing today. Gage, Knowles, Bergen, Owens, Chosen, Hodgins, Robinson, and Pearsall. One of the big stories today is that Jacob Cowing hurt himself yesterday in practice. I'm not saying this is the end of the line for Jacob, but he's not going to get that many opportunities. He's a 4th-round pick from last year who didn't do a whole lot last year. And then now he suffered a lower body injury. I don't know if it's a recurrence of the hamstring pull, but he hurt himself yesterday and he wasn't out there today. And he hasn't played at all in the preseason. And I would imagine now with this injury, he won't play in the preseason. And I just got to think that his time with the Niners is probably coming to an end. Maybe not. Maybe they'll put him on some injured list. But Jacob Cowing has been unable to do anything this summer. The 49ers, according to the odds makers, have the best odds of landing Brian Robinson, the Commanders' running back. If he plays for another team besides the Niners, the odds say that the Niners have a 4-to-1 chance to sign him, or to trade for him, I should say. And it could be sign or trade for him because the Commanders are believed to be taking offers, but if they don't get offers they like, they may ultimately wind up releasing Brian Robinson. But it sounds like the Niners have interest in Brian Robinson, at least according to some of the reports and some of the conjecture that's out there. We'll find out if they wind up with him. We talked to Isaac Guerendo after practice, and I asked him, is there a player that you emulate because of his size and speed? He's so unique. And sure enough, he went to Wisconsin. I probably should have thought of this. He emulates Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor, in a lot of ways, is Isaac Guerendo. He's a big back who runs in the 4-3s, and that's what Isaac Guerendo is. So it's fitting that he emulates Jonathan Taylor. They both, at one point, played for the Wisconsin Badgers. We talked to Tatum Bethune after practice, and the Niners' young linebacker redid his body in the offseason. He said, you know what? I'm copying Fred Warner. Everything Fred does, I'm trying to do. Everything he does with his body, I'm trying to do with my body. He admitted that he did kind of redo his diet a little bit in the offseason. And some of the people asked him about, what did you quit? And he's like, I got a sweet tooth. It's candy. And then I think Eric Branch asked him, what candy and specifically is the hardest for you to quit? And he said, Swedish fish, which is an incredible candy, by the way. I love Swedish fish myself. And I like Tatum Bethune that much more, knowing that he also is a fan of Swedish fish. As I said, Jacob Cowing not out there today. Probably one of the reasons that Diana Rossini is reporting this morning that the Niners, Vikings, and Jets are all aggressively seeking wide receiver trades. Here we are at the cutdown. Somebody else speculated that the Niners have already called Buffalo, Indianapolis, and New England. Now, if it's New England, it's probably for Kendrick Bourne, who I kind of think is done, to be completely honest. He tore his ACL in 2023. I don't think there's much left there. Indy, the receiver they could be calling on is Alec Pierce, who's a younger player who has a lot more talent, a lot more ability than Bourne at this point. But Buffalo is kind of the interesting team because they have a number of guys the Niners could be calling on. KJ Hamler's in that camp. Elijah Moore is in that camp. Laviska Shenault is in that camp. Curtis Samuel is in Buffalo's training camp. So, you know, Shenault to me would be a great fit. He can run, he can catch, he's a receiver, he's a running back, he's kind of a Debo clone. And I always thought that, you know, Curtis Samuel might be a good fit too, but Laviska Shenault can help you as a return man on special teams, and he's dynamic on special teams. And then he also could be a running back, he could be a receiver. I mean, there's a lot to like about Laviska Shenault. So maybe the Niners have interest in Shenault. Now, we talked to Robert Saleh after practice, and I asked Robert, I said, I know you got Chargers coming up, and I know it's one game at a time mentality, but that game means nothing, and obviously week one means everything. And I said, do you allow yourself to peek ahead to Seattle? And he said, you know what? I've got to put everything I've got into this game for the guys who are trying to earn a roster spot in this Chargers game. I've got to put everything I've got into it. But he's like, when I do have some downtime, he admitted that he is peeking ahead to Seattle, and he should. Seattle has averaged 5.3 a carry rushing against the Raiders, and then followed it up with 5.6 a carry rushing against Kansas City, where they ran for 48 carries for 268 rushing yards. You can bank that Seattle is going to try to run the ball right down the Niners' throat in week one up at Lumen Field. You know it's going to come. The Niners have, you know, new defensive tackles, new linebackers, maybe a bunch of new starters on defense, new defensive coordinator. The Seahawks last year were the most pass-happy team in pro football. They have a new coordinator. It's Kubiak, Clint Kubiak. They've got, you know, the two-headed monster of Charbonnet and Walker, and they're going to come right at the 49ers. They drafted Gray Zabel on their offensive line. He's having a very good summer as a run blocker and a pass protector. And they're going to try to line up and gut the 49ers by running it down their throat. And Saleh knows it. He absolutely knows it. I mean, I could just tell. As far as practice highlights today, here's what happened today at practice. Practicing were George Kittle, Trent Williams, got a rest day yesterday, he practiced today. CMC, Bosa, Lenore, Warner, Purdy, all the big boys were out there today. Ben Barch was working still on the side. He's not yet ready to practice. In the one-on-ones, I thought Dallas Flowers made a really nice coverage on a rep. Jacob Robinson had a beautiful PBU against Junior Bergen. Chosen won a rep against Demo Lenore. And then Russell Gage cooked Saron Neal. Saron Neal could not stay within 5 yards of Russell Gage in some of the one-on-ones. Then we got into the team drills. You know, there was a couple real highlights. Marquise Siegel had a beautiful PBU. Nick Martin had a great play against the run against Jeff Wilson. Renardo Green actually popped CMC. You don't like to see that, but Renardo Green was letting it go today, and he actually had a pretty big hit on CMC. Purdy hit Pearsall on a beautiful out route, just an absolute dime, put it right on his hands. Jason Pinnock had an interception. I believe it was of Purdy, but I couldn't really see. Jeff Wilson on the halfback toss had a nice little run, and we got to the sideline. He nearly ran over T-Rock, Tim Ryan, the Niners color analyst. Almost got the worst of it. Jeff Wilson nearly ran him over on the sideline, and T-Rock goes about $3 bills. Sam O had a hit today on CMC, and I'm sitting there going, what are you doing? Do not hit CMC, but he did today. We saw Nate Sudfeld throw for the first time. He looked really rusty. He had badly overthrown balls to Chosen and Pearsall on back-to-back pass attempts. He later fumbled in the practice. But Sudfeld did recoup and recover and had a really nice play-action pass later in the practice to Demarcus Robinson. Purdy hit Pearsall for a red zone touchdown. We saw Jacob Robinson have an interception of Carter Bradley. Beautiful interception by Robinson. Purdy had a pass that was intercepted by D. Winters. Winters made a nice play on that one. Fred Warner had a beautiful PBU on a Purdy pass to Kittle in the red zone. Demo also had a PBU on a Purdy fade to Hodgins where he just batted it out of the sky. And then we saw CMC had a one-handed touchdown catch from Purdy in the red zone. That was pretty much towards the end of practice. It was a warm day today. And then we saw Carter Bradley, maybe the play of the day. Carter Bradley had a pass that was deflected, popped up into the air, and was caught by the tight end Luke Farrell, who appeared to run it in for a touchdown. So there you go. The good, the bad, the ugly from 49er practice on a Wednesday. So the big news today, really, the waiving injured of Corey Kiner, though I do expect he'll probably be back on this roster, or at least I hope he is. The Diana Rossini report saying the Niners are openly looking to trade for a wide receiver. And, there was no Jawan Jennings. I don't know. The Niners have to have a contingency plan. There's a very good chance he doesn't come back. If he doesn't come back, what do? And they can't lean on Cowing now because he's hurt. So the Niners are in a situation now where they've signed Malik Knowles to get through the week, but they're looking for receivers. Romeo Doubs, I think, would make a lot of sense for the 49ers. Those other receivers we named earlier, including Laviska Shenault, make a lot of sense. If it's Kendrick Bourne, it's like a big meh, because I don't think Kendrick Bourne's much anymore. I hope they don't go that route, but we'll see. 49ers are likely to add a receiver, you would think, either by the cutdown, at the cutdown, either a veteran they trade for, or maybe a young player that they pick up off waivers off another team's roster. All right, thanks to Pig in a Pickle for being the title sponsor of The Krug Show. Thanks to our good friends at Clawdaddy Arcades and Sharp Corners Sports Cards and Collectibles for sponsoring this video. And thanks to all of you guys for supporting The Krug Show on YouTube.